Welcome to Concrete Conversations, a collection of exactly that, conversations about concrete. My name is Lindsay Rudd, and for the last 15 years, concrete and the industry itself has been my life. Over the next few episodes, we intend to talk about the industry itself, materials, machines, and of course those colourful characters within. So today's episode is entitled Giving It Both Barrels. The reason for that is I was talking to a driver not a few weeks ago who wasn't aware there was two different types of drum. There's a mixing drum and an agitation drum. And if he didn't know that, I'm taking a chance on there's quite a few people out there that don't know that either. So we're going to get into that today. Let's get into giving it both barrels. So a good place to start would be, what is a mixing drum? Well, a boring definition of the drum would be a vessel for combining constituents, mainly cement, water, aggregate and sand, homogeneously to create concrete, or to maintain the liquid state of concrete through agitation or turning.
Boring!
Actually, it's the bit that makes the driver money. Now obviously there's multiple concrete mixer manufacturers out there today, whether it be home-based, European, worldwide. The example I'm going to use this afternoon is going to be this one, which is a Nugent M800 drum. It's 8 metre capacity, it's just over 5 metres long, just over 2.2 metres wide, and has a 4mm Hardox skin. Concrete drums come in all shapes and sizes. They usually start off at 4 metres for the little mini mixers, and will go up to 8 or 9 metres for a transit mixer chassis. Some companies will also build a 12 or a 15 metre drum for articulated trailer mixers. Drum thicknesses usually range from 3mm to 5mm thick. Most companies these days will build you a 3 or 4mm thick Hardox drum. Some will still do a 5mm S355 mild steel drum as well. Obviously the difference is the Hardox drum is the same wear for less weight. That's where your trade-off comes. Long gone are the days of the 2mm drums from the mid-2010s. Most people these days focus around the 3mm Hardox drum. This drum also has a drop forged track ring, which means it's forged out of one piece of solid steel. Some companies still use one bar folded. I tend to stay away from that because if the weld fails, obviously it affects the drum as well. But this one, drop forged steel, best way to go. And a drop forged gearbox flange. If used correctly, you'll easily get 7 years lifespan out of this drum. And when I say used correctly, of course, I mean spun at the right revolutions. So this drum should never spin any more than 1 revolution per minute when taking concrete to a site, 2 revolutions per minute maximum for a wet or a sloppy mix. It should never spin any faster than that unless it's charging, discharging or being cleaned. So, what's inside?
Oh shit.
Well, if you believe everything you see on TV, this programme shows karate students of all things getting inside what seems to be some kind of vast horizontal 40 cubic metre vessel, and concrete is portrayed by some kind of magical non-hardening porridge. There's a distinct lack of any kind of mixing equipment or a loading cone, and I think any kind of health and safety would have a field day with that entry. And just a note at this point to also pay our last respects to the kids' hands and feet. They'd be non-existent after being submerged in concrete after an exercise like this, and to be honest, no hands and feet, I don't fancy their chances as a karate student. Perfect moment for a segue there. Why would the kids have no hands and feet? Well, it's because concrete burns because of its pH level. And everybody hears the dangers of acid from films and TV and stuff, but not so much the equal dangers of alkaline. So, time for a quick science lesson. On the pH table shown, it runs from 0 to 14, with 7 being neutral. 7 is the pH level of pure water and obviously harmless to us. But as you move either way on the pH table, the substance becomes more and more dangerous. An acid or an alkaline rating 14 would have deadly effects on humans, and to highlight how nasty concrete is, it has a pH level of 12 to 13, which is the acidic equivalent of stomach acid. Now, stomach acid dissolves meat, fat, bone, so concrete is equally as harmful the other way. So the moral of the story is, if you don't want hands like this, wear gloves, clean yourself, and definitely don't put school kids in it like the film.
Now here's a bit of Hollywood I'd love to believe.
Vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. Oh, God, that's bloody awful. Another childhood illusion shattered. The purpose of today's episode, of course, is mixing drum versus agitation drum. Why are there two types? Well, I'll tell you why. It's basically where it's built in the world. European batching plants are all wet batch, which basically means that the concrete is mixed on site at the batching plant and put straight into the back of the drum as one homogeneous mix. In the UK, however, around 80% of the batching plants here are dry or semi-dry, which means that they add the constituents one by one and the mixing barrel mixes it themselves. If you don't know what barrel you've got, basically as a rule of thumb, if you bought a European mixer, it's an agitator. If you bought a UK built mixer, it's going to be a mixing drum.
Both agitation and mixing drums owe their design to this jolly chap, Archimedes, who in 234 BC invented this beauty, the Archimedes screw. He invented it for moving water or fluids uphill, and 2,000 years later it's still the best practice today. Both drums have this innard as their basis, although applied slightly differently.
An agitation drum isn't capped, so each of their blades is very, very similar to this. The concrete passes over the blade, where oxygen and movement agitates the mix to keep it live. In a mixing drum, however, each of the blades is capped with a T-piece. This helps the mixing of the concrete as the concrete is pushed up the side of the blade and uses the T-piece to fold it back on itself like bread, therefore getting a homogeneous mix of concrete. British Standard 8500 actually requires concrete when it's delivered to its site to be homogeneously mixed, so bear that in mind when you're buying your next mixer or choosing your batching plant. This is the business end of the drum. This is where the mixing happens, and it happens when the concrete is pushed against the wear plate when the drum's on charge. When the drum's on discharge, however, the concrete is pushed up the screw and out through the mouthpiece. Obviously, the blades inside any drum are prone to build up. You need to keep these clean by washing them off every night or after every use of the concrete drum. Otherwise, you'll get a large amount of build up on the blades.
They don't look new and clean for long, and as concrete is viscous, it sticks to absolutely everything. Obviously, it's used for building, and it's solid and extremely strong when it sets, so build-up is inevitable, but equally, it's combated by regular user cleaning. Some people still stone them on occasion, and others use the various makes of drum jet to top up their cleaning. I think Drum Blaster, Ready Jet, Walter Wash are just some of those out there. But sometimes they get into an awful state and require the thankless job of chipping out. Definitely not one I'd want to do, but if needed, the likes of Lawrence Forbes can help you. I've seen Ashley Holt, MC Chip Out Services, advertised a lot on Facebook. I know CBR over in Wisbeach are doing it now, and there's others around the UK who can help you also, but it's best to get a professional at these in to do the job. As in a later episode, I'll cover the dangers of getting inside a drum yourself in a lot more detail. So, quick recap, agitation drums versus mixing drums. Both drums can be made out of the same material, both drums can be the same thickness, both drums look similar from the outside skin. It's the innards and blades which make them different. Agitation drums are built for the European market to suit the wet batch batching plants. They have shallower blades and they allow mixed wet concrete to pass over and keep oxygen in via agitation to keep the mix live. UK mixing drum has larger blades and capping to mix constituents of concrete as the mixer drives to make one homogeneous mix. If the drum is UK built, it will be a mixing drum to suit the dry and semi-dry plants of the UK. If it's a European built drum, it will be an agitation barrel to suit the wet batch plants of Europe. Both drums will perform the task of mixing concrete admirably, but the trade-offs are mixing drums will mix all types of concrete homogeneously and quicker, but slightly more prone to build-up due to the bigger blades and capping. Agitation drums will struggle more with dry or semi-dry, meaning the mix is less likely to be homogeneous, and due to the higher number of rotations needed, more wear is incurred, and therefore repairs and replacement are needed sooner.
That's Concrete Conversations Volume 1. Hope you enjoyed it. It definitely gets better going forward, I promise you. In the next coming weeks, we've got some day in the life, some interviews, some good chats with concrete characters. We've also got some expert input from around the industry. We've got some legislation updates and, of course, some other concrete topics as well. So thanks for joining me. See you next time.